Hey, hello, leaders, and welcome back to Run to Your Leadership Challenges. Hey, sorry I missed a couple days. I had a head cold, and I just didn't think you would like to hear me talking with the stuffy nose. I still got a little bit, but I'm feeling a lot better. And that made me think about suffering. I did this TikTok the other day, very short TikTok on suffering and how I heard that suffering builds character. Now, I know somebody, maybe all of you, are suffering over something out there. And, when we think about our suffering, the last thing we think about is how it's building our character. I mean, screw that, right? I mean, we're suffering, we're hurting, we're going through a rough time. And we just really don't want to think about how, oh, this is making me better. Well, that's hard to kind of think that way. But today, I want to encourage you to learn from the suffering, examine it closely, examine exactly what you can do, what you have control over, how you can improve something. And, the only thing that we can control in suffering is usually our actions, our attitudes, and our emotions to a certain degree, right? So, if you're suffering today, I want you to just try this out. Try to think about what does it look like on the other side of all this suffering that you may be going through. What does it look like? Does it look better than it does now? Does it look worse than it does now? And no matter if it looks better or worse, how does that make you better? Does it? Can it? Is there any possibilities of you being better at the end of this suffering? Because let's face it, we go through a lot of suffering in our lives. We go through ups and downs, and sometimes the ups are suffering for some people. I've never experienced that personally, but well, yeah, I kind of have because, when things are going really good in the business, I kind of have a hard time struggling with the balance with my family. And when things are going really good with the family, I kind of have a hard time balancing the time with the business because when you work from home, man, it's hard to separate that and establish boundaries. So that's kind of some suffering that I go through every day. And I know some of you that are working in a job that you don't like, you're probably saying, well, poor you, you're working from home. You don't have to go through this BS and this stress. And you're exactly right. I don't have some of the stresses that you all may have in a job that you don't like or working for a boss that you don't like. But if you're suffering with that, just think about it. How can you work through that? What do you control about that situation? And it comes back to the same answer. The only thing that we have total control over is our attitude and our actions. And they say we can control our emotions, but that can be tricky at times. Some people have total control of their emotions. And, I've heard it's a choice, and I agree with that, but it's not easy because when something really gets under your skin, man, it's tough to put on that happy face. When you really dislike your job or dislike your boss or disrespect your boss, it's very, very difficult to go to work every day. And believe me, I did that for 54 weeks on a job. And if you listen long enough, you know what that job is. But I did that for 54 weeks. And the last 30 weeks were miserable. I mean, my stomach was churning as I pulled out of the driveway. And I told my wife then I wanted to quit. And she said, just give it a year. See what happens in a year. And I gave it my all for a year. I had a better attitude, although it was difficult. And my actions, I put everything I had into that job. And when that year was getting closer and closer, Jen and I talked and, we said, all right, at the year point, I'm turning in my resignation. And it did not meet my value system. And when you're working in a job that's incongruent with your values, man, that is suffering. That is going through a very difficult time because you're not living out your values, or you can't to a certain extent. Maybe you can't openly live out your values. Maybe you can't, maybe you can, but you're constantly surrounded by things that go against your values, and that's hard to deal with. That's a suffering that may happen. But as a leader, we can control our attitude and our actions. So think about what you can control in your suffering. Think about what it looks like on the other side of this suffering when you've worked through this. What does it look like? It may look like you've left a job. It may look like you're working somewhere else. Or it may look like you're still working there, but you've changed the situation somehow through your actions and attitude. Well, hey, that's it for today. Again, I'm sorry I missed a couple days, and it's good to be back. And I hope you enjoyed this show, and I'd love to invite you to subscribe and or share this show with others that you think it may help. Hey, that's it for today, and until tomorrow, run to your challenges. We'll see you.